Good morning, it's Wednesday, and I'm going to share some thoughts about the big picture of Christianity this morning. It says in Ephesians chapter 6, finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Your enemies are not the people at work who get on your nerves. Your enemies are much deeper and greater than that. They are the spiritual forces at work. Often as Christians we think about them as demons or evil spirits, but they also represent the sociological, ideological forces which control our world and which tell us what to think. They're manifested through the internet. They used to be manifested through TV screens, through social media, and they tell us what to think. They give us our opinions. And if you're watching Strictly Come Dancing, nothing wrong with it, but it can be a kind of anesthetic that stops you thinking creatively, that stops you thinking critically about what's going on. It just puts you to sleep for a while. And then you wake up and you wonder, how did I spend that 2 hours? Was anything productive achieved? And so we are battling against these spiritual powers, these ideological forces which try and control us. In Eastern Europe, it used to be communism. In Western Europe, in the West generally now, it's capitalism. The theory that there is no alternative. In Romans chapter 12, it tells us, it says, do not be conformed. It says, offer your bodies as living sacrifices. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Let your mind be renewed. Don't be conformed. Don't be the same as everybody else, but be transformed. Be changed. Let God change you. Because there are forces at work in the world that would want to make you follow their prejudices, their views. It says in 1 John chapter 2, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. Fashions come and go. Fads come and go. I remember back in the 90s, someone made fun of some bishops and said, can you name the Spice Girls? And of course the bishops couldn't. And so they were considered to be out of date. Well, who's out of date now? Who remembers the Spice Girls? They don't have any cultural influence anymore. Their time has passed. And the things of this world pass, they pass away. But the things of God last forever. That's why in Ephesians 6, it says, be strong in the Lord, because we need the strength of God to resist the temptations to go along with whatever's current in our world at the time. It ties in with a lot of secular theories. There's a guy called Guy Debord, who was a French theorist, who talked about the spectacle. And he meant advertising, he meant TV. He was writing in the 60s and 70s, and how this controls us. Again, you've got people writing in the 1930s, like Antonio Gramsci, who was a prisoner of the fascists under Mussolini. And he talked about hegemony and how the idea is that what appears to be common sense rules our lives, and we conform and we go along with whatever society tells us to do. And the same goes today. The spectacle. hegemony. It's a systemic thing. That's why you get institutional racism, not because anyone's necessarily individually racist. They may be, and there are individual racists, but there are also institutions that operate in racist ways, and these become embedded in the social practices of those institutions. At the time that Paul was writing, he was talking about the Roman Empire, and if you went into a city, you would find an inscription above the door dedicated to the emperor that had built a statue of the city. And you find the idea of the Pax Romana, Pax meaning peace, that somehow the Roman Empire built peace. The historian said, Tacitus said, that the Romans created a desert and call it peace. And not so long ago, people used to talk about the Pax Americana, that somehow the United States would act as a global policeman and bring peace to the world. And we've seen what happens in places like Iraq and Afghanistan when they tried to do that. So there's a whole system in operation that we have to think about as Christians. Christianity is not just about spiritual things, it's about worldly things. It's about society. The Roman Catholic Church have a thing called a catechesis, which is a way of teaching the content of the Christian faith. And we're all being catechized. We're all being taught. In Protestant churches, we talk about discipleship. We're all being discipled. Every time you look at the internet ads or a billboard, you're being catechized. You're being discipled. You're being taught what is important. And unless we are critical and self-conscious, we will just go along with whatever it tells us to do. We'll conform to the values of our world. And so I want to challenge you today. Look out for the hidden messages that are around you. Look out for the hidden messages trying to encourage you in certain directions. And be critical of them. And ask God to illuminate what's going on so that you can resist. We are part of a resistance movement against the world. Love not the world. We are here to be different from the world. We're here to be deviants, dissenters, nonconformists. And that's difficult. But it's what God calls us to do. It's what he calls us to be. And so it's a challenge for us. And I just issue that challenge to you this morning. Ask God to reveal to you how you're being secretly, manipulatively influenced, and take a step against it.